which lets the criminals out without, they want criminals out on bail instead of putting them in prison. I recommend all of you to do me a favor. Call or email the Attorney General, the Federal Attorney General, and tell them that you want bail reform, because our police are doing the work. They're catching these criminals, but they're let out. So we need you all together to help us fight this in Canada. It's not an issue only in Ontario. It's all through Canada that we are having this issue. But I'll leave it with the police to explain to you exactly what they're doing and what the issues are out there. So we'll talk to you later, probably this evening as well.
Thank you, Rudy. And Gerald from Safe City Mississauga can talk briefly about the Neighborhood Watch program, and if folks are interested in signing on, can meet with him and talk with him after the meeting.
Evening, everyone. My name is Gerald the Dad. I wear a couple different hats at Safe City Mississauga, but I do help run the Neighborhood Watch program. In a nutshell, Neighborhood Watch is an organized group of neighbors dedicated to looking out for each other and each other's communities. So we help to connect these neighborhoods, build these relationships in neighborhoods, and also provide crime prevention training to residents there, so that you can also take crime prevention into your own hands as well. We also do provide support in crime prevention through environmental design, and that's where we'll actually take a tour of your neighborhood to see what are some of the physical and environmental features that might be encouraging crime, and how can we help you address those issues. So if there is any interest in starting a Neighborhood Watch, I'll be here to take questions, or you can come see me afterwards and I can distribute my contact information too. Okay. Oh, sure. Yeah. Do you want me to say that again or do the whole thing again? Okay. All right. Neighborhood Watch. All right. One more time. Okay. Neighborhood Watch. So I help run the Neighborhood Watch program at Safe City Mississauga, which is a crime prevention program in which we connect neighbors and communities and create an organized community dedicated to looking out for each other. So we provide crime prevention training to residents. We provide crime prevention through environmental design analysis of your neighborhoods, so we can determine some of the physical and environmental features that are encouraging crime and help you address them as a community too. So if there are any questions about how to start a Neighborhood Watch, I'll be here all night as well. If I can take your questions, or you can come see me afterwards and I can distribute some information. Okay. Was that good? One more time? Okay. No. Okay. All right. Yeah.
We'll go back to the tape for the next one. Thank you, Gerald. I'm not sure who's going first. Are you going first? Okay. Superintendent Coley, who has a presentation for us.
Thank you, sir. Can you all hear me okay? Perfect. Yeah, I know. I apologize. I'm also losing my voice. So first off, I want to thank everybody. This is a clear indication of a community who cares. So truly appreciate you taking the time and allowing us to come here to talk to you all. I think obviously seeing the size of the room online, I'm going to pivot away from the presentation. What we will do is I have the stats available for everybody by way of email. We had a little issue creating a QR code, but we will be doing that as well, that we'll share with Councillor Tedjo. So rather than starting the presentation and going through some of the stats, I want to maximize the opportunity for questions. So again, just a quick introduction, brief introduction of myself. Josh Colley. I'm in charge of 11 Division that oversees this whole area, right up to the 407 border, here Ontario to the Oakville border. Here with me today again is Deputy Chief Mark Andrews, who oversees all of community policing operations. So that's all your frontline duty inspectors, RSS, which is our traffic unit. Staff Superintendent Hubert Hiltz, who is also one of the commanding officers for CPOC. And then I've got a little bit of our team here, Rowena Price, that I'm sure some of you have either had a chance to email or have conversations. She's our community liaison officer. And then Sergeant Mike Bishop over in the back there, who's one of our sergeants of our CERT team. I will talk about CERT, and forgive me if for some who may have been at the previous presentation last year, I just want to kind of give you a little bit of where we've gone with our CERT team, the evolution, and how I believe, I would hope that you have all seen a greater police presence over the last couple of weeks. That's directly our CERT team that's been involved in taking care of that. So what I'll do is I'll bring up the deputy to just say a few words just to address, and then we're going to get right into the questions. Now, I know that our questions will cover some of the presentation. The plan is to go over what our break and enter stats are for Lorne Park, auto thefts, traffic, but we're more interested in having an opportunity to have this question answer period. And then again, we'll share the stats with you afterwards. So Deputy.
Thanks, Josh. I apologize ahead of time. I'm coming off the tail end of a cold, and that's why I've got the Barry White voice. Um, to sort of echo what Josh said, it's tremendous to see a community turn out like this. That's how we're going to get past these challenges that we all face, and not just in this community, but across Mississauga and Brampton, and across the GTA. Is having communities engaged, involved, and looking out for each other. Because this is, if we think that these issues are going to be solved simply by policing, we're mistaken. It takes a community effort and the whole of the community working together to address these challenges. Just very briefly, so I know one of the incidents that's sort of precipitated this meeting was a home invasion. Where three, I want to say, three people wearing construction vests and entered a home and held the family at gunpoint. We've arrested two of those people, recovered a firearm. We've identified the third person through fingerprints, so that tells you his background. The gun was illegal. Both of the arrested parties were had prior charges, and one was prohibited possessing firearms. The fact that we were able to arrest them is great, but the piece is, how were they able to be on the street with a firearm in the first place? That's the issue, and there's a whole bunch of solutions to that. I've got to be very careful about what I say, because policing and police officers have got to be apolitical, and I am apolitical. So I'm gonna, and this is all on tape, so I got to be very, very careful. But I will say this: you have a voice. This is a strong community. The turnout here tells me that, tells our political people, both at the municipal and provincial and at the federal level, that you have a voice. Use it. Use it to affect change. Use it to be heard, because that's the only way we're going to address some of these pieces. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll see I just posted today, on December the 4th, some uniformed officers from 12th Division arrested 4 people with 2 illegal firearms that were smuggled across the border. Multiple charges against these individuals. 2 of them were out on bail and prohibited firearms. These are not legal firearms. They're not hunters. They're not they're not trappers. These people are acquiring these handguns from south of the border, and in the first 9 days of December, we've seized 7 firearms, 7 crime guns. We've seized multiple guns for safekeeping in terms of other issues, but 7 crime guns in 9 days. I say this from a place of experience. I'm old. I've been a police officer for 35 years, in my 35th year. I've seen the evolution of our community. When I say our community, I mean that because I grew up in Mississauga. I'm an Applewood Heights kid. I hate Lorne Park. Sorry, that was my inside. That's my inside voice. Inside voice. But and I still live in the region. I live in the north end of Brampton. My sister and my brother both live in Mississauga. My father still lives across from Applewood Heights High School, and my son, my oldest son, who is also a Peel police officer, and is in our drug squad, lives in Mississauga. So this is not somebody else's problem. I don't get in my car and drive away at the end of the day, and go to another community. What happens in this community matters to me in a visceral way. And it's not just me, it's all of this Peel Regional Police. We feel the same way. We want to keep this community safe. There are challenges around that. And, we're trying to address those challenges. We can't address them in isolation. There are multiple pieces to it. Not everything, we can't arrest our way out of every problem, but we sure can arrest our way out of some problems. And we got to do that. And anyways, I don't want to ramble on because I can sit up here and the worst thing you can ever do is give a senior police officer a mic and an audience, because I love to talk. And my wife is probably watching this, and she's probably saying, "Sum up, sum up." Nobody wants to listen to you talk all night, so I'll stop and clear the floor. But know this: we're here to answer your questions, and if we don't have an answer, we'll find one. And the answer may not be what makes you happy, because we got 1,000 roads in this community, right? 11 division. I used to be a superintendent at 11 division as well, prior to becoming a deputy chief. So I know this area very well. We could, if we put an officer on every street, we still would have challenges. We've had homicides where a police house has been sitting in the parking lot of an establishment, and we've had multiple people shot there because the criminals are becoming more brazen. Absolutely. Not a matter, it's not a matter of I believe so, I think so. It's factual. I've been doing this job for 35 years, both as a constable in 12 division, I've every rank in this department. I've been in homicide, drugs, critical incident command. I can tell you that the evolution of the community has changed. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. This is a great community. It's the best community in Canada, in my considered opinion. We have a fantastic community, but with the dynamic community we have come challenges, and we've got to be honest about it. We've got to face them, and we're here to do the hard work with you and support you. So thank you.
Thanks, boss. One of the pieces before we jump into it, I just want to go through a couple of stats that I believe you will all be interested in. This is not breaking news because we talked about it. It's out on Twitter. When the boss talked about bail reform and bail, just to put in perspective, last year alone, we spent $36 million of our police budget in investigating and rearresting reoffenders that were out on bail, out on a form of release. $36 million. When you talk about our police budget and what that equates to, you can imagine what we could do if we weren't wasting money on that side of it. So not to say that it won't happen and that that is a part of our job, but it just puts in perspective the amount of financials that go into investigating reoffenders. And I hope you don't mind me. I said it, so I'll get in trouble. Don't worry, you're good. He's the one who'll give me trouble anyway. So, and just also too, I want to provide a bit of a breakdown of what you are all facing. So break-and-enters are a huge concern, and they should be. It's your home. You've worked hard for it. One of the things that we've talked about, the councillor and I, and other councillors throughout Mississauga, what we're seeing are, and I say this all the time, there are three elements to a crime: the criminal, the victim, and opportunity. And the biggest piece that we're trying to work on is, we will never eliminate an opportunity, but how do we minimize it? What can we do together? What can we do together to minimize that opportunity? What we're seeing throughout the region are criminals are focusing on the vulnerable, let's say, part of your house. We're seeing an increase with homes on ravines, on paths. I know that you guys have experienced it as well. And so what we have been doing is we've been looking at, okay, what can we do proactively? Is that a bit better? Sorry. I don't, with my voice, I hate talking to the mic. I apologize. What can we do proactively and together to prevent or try to minimize that opportunity? So we as an organization, again, with Neighborhood Watch, we offer a service where we do a CPTED. And I believe there are some people in the room that have had this CPTED before, where we'll come out, walk around your house, talk about what can you do to better protect your home, whether it's lighting, whether it's alarm cameras, sometimes cutting back some of the trees and bushes that may prevent proactive patrols from seeing what's going on. part of the conversation that we're having right now is, do we talk about working with the city and putting up fencing? And I know folks who are on back onto a ravine don't want to see a fence in their backyard because they value the land behind. But like the deputy said, times are changing, and as we modernize our policing tactics and everything else, criminals are doing the same, and they're looking at ways that they can be successful in their endeavors. So those are some of the conversations that we're having with our partners. But I just want to bring you all alive to some of the areas that criminals are focusing on, and that's the reality. So without saying any more, I want to open it up to questions because I know there are a lot. Do you want to start online first, and then we'll kind of, there are microphones, I believe.
Well, we have a lot of questions, and I think
Okay.
a lot of people here have access to. So let me get through a few of these
Sounds
first,
good.
and then we'll have somebody go around with a microphone if there are other questions that aren't addressed here. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the higher ones here. A number of Lorne Park residents are considering hiring private security. What steps will be taken to ensure people feel safe to sleep at night and not have to pay for their own safety? So I've edited that a little bit, but maybe comment around the private security piece and additional steps for enhanced patrols.
Absolutely. So we actually had a conversation about this, and we've talked about this with other communities as well. Obviously, anything I say represents from the organization, but this is also Josh Colley's speak to you folks. We're a police organization. Our primary function is public safety. And so when we hear from communities that they want to hire security, to me, we're not doing enough. Not that we aren't trying, and not, like the boss said, it's about resourcing. It's about, as our calls for service and our crimes are going up, we continue to do more. We continue to modernize. But when a community feels unsafe and start talking about hiring private security, that's a concern for us. Now, what we have said in the past, and I'll continue to say this, we have to work together, and you have to own a little bit of what you're doing to protect your own property, your own home, your family. So when I say that, cameras, where we talked about what you do around with bushes, lights, and everything else, that's a cost that I would absolutely stress invest in. That's that proactive on your side. On our side, our goal is to have more officers out there in your community. We want you to be able to look outside and see a car driving down the street, not responding to a call for service, but out there patrolling. And so, and I know you'll probably want to jump in on this, but our goal is to be proactive, increase that visibility, not have you spending money on security, but putting that inwards.
Thanks, Josh. That's a really good question, and Josh's answer was pretty fulsome. The bottom line is, as professional police officers and members of the community, we don't want to see communities feel like they're being forced to hire private security to add additional layer of security to the community safety. Having said that, we talked about CERT earlier, the Community Incident Response Teams. That's a pretty new addition to this particular community, to 11 Division. We don't have it. We're not resourced to the point where we could have CERT across the region. 21 Division in the North End still doesn't have a CERT team because we don't have the bodies to be able to make that change that even though we know it's needed. I'll give you an example of some of the things that that are taking resources. The 911 calls for service that we're responding to are so intense and so frequent. The cadence of them is so frequent that we don't have the time that we did 10, 15 years ago to do proactive policing. Because police presence deters crime. You will have seen in the last few weeks that in this particular community, the presence of the CERT teams. Oh, can you hear me now? Okay. The presence of the CERT teams has probably, sort of been obvious to everyone in this community. That's what we would like to have in every community all the time. but we simply don't have the resourcing to be able to do that. And then you add on top of that some of the complexities that have come with having a large dynamic community like the one that we have. On Saturday, with about 45 minutes notice, Josh and his team had to provide security for, what was it, 3,000 people at Celebration Square, a spontaneous celebration that occurred just like that. Those things didn't happen 10, 15, 20 years ago, not with the frequency and the cadence they do now. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but the fact is we've had literally hundreds of protests in the last 12 to 15 months, hundreds of protests, and every one of those protests requires a police response. It takes resources that are on duty. Sometimes we have to call in officers off duty to attend those. That wasn't the norm early in my policing career, or even when I was a superintendent at 11 Division. That's the way that our community has evolved, and we've got to be able to respond to those changes in the environment. Because if we stand still, we're falling behind.
Yeah, go ahead.
The community incident response team. It's Mike Bishop and his team at the back there. What we did in the last year and a half is that the bike units, the bicycle officers that you have all seen on the paths and that are highly visible and not in the cars, we've combined them with what we call beat foot patrol officers, and we've combined them into teams that aggressively enforce everything from traffic, criminal code, offenses across the community. They respond to community concerns. They're the guys that went out and got the home invaders from that incident we spoke about. And that we started in 22 Division in Brampton. We stood up the second team in 11 Division early this year, and we've just stood up a team in 12 Division. And we want to stand a team up in 21 Division, but we don't have the bodies to do it. We want to expand those, and we've made the bike officers are year round. They're no longer just something that you see in the spring and the summer and the fall. Those bike officers are on patrol all year round. We just got them some warm weather or winter weather gear because they're going to be pretty cold this year. But they're a great resource because their physical presence deters crime when they're on those bikes in the paths and in the ravines and in the park system that is such a great asset, but is utilized by criminals.
Good evening, everybody. As you can see, he does like the mic, but no, I just wanted to fill that up a little bit, and thank you for the question, because I'm very proud of our CERT teams. It first initiated as a pilot out of 22 Division, and it was very successful. And when the deputy's speaking to, there's elements of policing. There's responsive policing, and those are the people that are attached to the radio that go call to call. CERT allows us that freedom to do some proactive policing. And that's the gap that we see has been created because we're so busy going call to call. These officers are out there proactively looking and supporting the community for public safety. So they are intercepting drug activity, break-and enters, stolen cars, robberies. So I just wanted to explain that. It's that piece of proactive policing that we're now providing to the community through that group.
No, thank you for that clarification. And again, just to sort of remind everyone, it was within hours of that incident, the break-in we were talking about at gunpoint. After that, the CERT team was deployed to Lorne Park, and then within days, they arrested the perpetrators. I'm going to try to combine a couple of these just because there's a lot of questions. We're over 50 now. So this one's about response times because there's some concerns here that neighbors have had break-ins, they've called the police, and they're advised that they're really busy, will take a few hours to respond. Why is the response time so slow? I'd like to marry this question with 911 response times as well, because there's been a lot of investment in terms of 911 and the response times from 911. So if you want to just sort of expand talking but from 911 response times and then maybe sort of tiering of the responses so that people have an idea of what to expect based on the call that's coming in.
Okay, I could spend the next 2 hours talking about response times and 911, but I'll try to do it in a concise fashion. So in 2021 and 2022, we had seen significant deterioration in our ability to respond and answer to 911 emergency calls. We got to the point where, what was the delay? 3 to 8 minutes for a 911 call at busy times. That's the call volume. That's before an officer is even dispatched, but just getting through to 911, for a number of reasons. Some of it's misuse of 911. Some of it is, just the volume of 911 calls in our community. So last budget, for calendar year 2024, we asked for and received a significant investment by the region to expand our 911 call center. Physically, we were limited to what we could do, but by implementing some new technology, where we're leading the country in terms of next generation 911, and adding physical human resources to that problem, we've cut it down to where I think it's down to like 14 seconds, from minutes to 14 seconds for the 911 call answer. That doesn't address the problem of having a police officer actually respond to a call. So we've got actually 9 priorities of calls, 1 through 9. 1 being, there's a guy at my door with a gun, and that we need police right away. That's a emergency call for service. We're responding to those calls because we absolutely have to. We can't delay those, and we're doing an adequate job, but not a great job of responding to priority 1s. The next tier down is priority 2, obviously, and those calls are emergent but not critical. Someone's life is not in danger. We are, what's the word that I'm searching for? We are responding to those calls as quickly as we can, but because they're not life-threatening, we find ourselves, when it's your house that's been broken into, and you say there's, the person that's broken is not present. For us, it's a lower tier call, but for you, it's a violation of your home, right? So, but we've got to balance out those priorities. When I talked a little earlier about the fact that we've got a high volume of emergent calls, we have significant pressures in terms of responding to whether it's protests or demonstrations and other things that are going on in our community. Serious motor vehicle collisions, shootings, armed robberies, smash and grabs at jewelry stores, which you've all seen. We're responding to those as quickly on an emergent basis. The next tier down, priority 2s, we respond to as quickly as we can. Sometimes that can take 15, 20, 25 minutes. Priority 3s and 4s, which are a break into your car, that someone gets up in the morning, discovers their car is gone. It becomes difficult, and I'm not proud of this, but it'll sometimes take up to 9 hours for us to get to priority 3 and 4 calls, and we know those are quality of life calls. I can go through call after call that we have had that are priority 3s that we have to prioritize that way, because it's not life threatening, it's not emergent in nature. It's still important. It's important to the victim, but because we only have so many resources, we got finite resources and almost infinite demands on those resources. So, and I won't even get into the priority 5s through 9. A lot of those are being answered by alternate methods. So we're leveraging technology as best we can to respond to lower level calls. We're responding to life-threatening calls as on an emergent basis, because those are the critical need. Priority 2, priority 3, and priority 4 calls become dependent on the resourcing that's available at the time. So if on Saturday we have a demonstration that takes, 20 officers off the road, then conversely, those 20 officers are not available to respond to priority 2s, priority 3s, and priority 4s, and there's going to be a delay. It's not something that we want to have happen, but when you have considerable demand and finite resources, you've got to prioritize.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. I do have a comment here. Please don't shoot the messenger. Please keep the answers brief so we can get to more questions. I didn't say that. It was here.
I apologize, but these are serious questions, and the fact is, I can stand here and give you sort of canned answers, but we're talking about people's homes, their lives, their families. I just had to talk to a family in Brampton where, as a result of a mistaken identity, a young man was shot and is permanently paralyzed. He wasn't the intended victim. I just had to talk to that person's family, a young man's family. His life is going to be challenged for as long as he lives.
So I'm going to do one more combined question here from the Slido, and then I'll come into the audience and get a couple of questions there. But this one's sort of understanding what actions residents can take and understanding what actions then the police will do. So, what happens when residents report suspicious activity? Should they report suspicious activity? How should they do that? Are they doing that online? Are they calling 911? Are they calling the non-emergency line? How much information do you need? And then what do you do after that? This is along the same lines as what else can we do as residents of this community? You're talking about lights, you're talking about cameras. What are sort of the list of deterrents that we can do so that we're not getting into that space and we're not providing that opportunity? And then what does Peel Regional Police then do in response to these things when we're able to do them? Video was another big one. Someone got their car stolen. No one asked for their video. Where do these things go?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, most important, if it is not an emergency, do not call 911. That goes back to delayed response and everything else. We do have a non-emergency line, but through technology, we've been sharing QR codes that allow us to upload video. So when we talk about video suspicious circumstances, we absolutely need to know about that. Somebody, and I know it was not that long ago, someone was on the streets of Lorne Park taking pictures of homes. Is it something? We don't know unless we investigate it. So what we ask is, when you have video, when you have information that you believe is concerning, let us know. There is, by way of email, through our 11 division has a central email that comes to me. We provide you with a QR code to upload your video. We will document the video, we'll hold it, and when we have an investigation or something's going on, we have the ability to pull that. So I would say if there's anything concerning, please let us know. Now, to the deputy's point, are we going to get to it immediately? That's not realistic. If it's an emergency, and obviously during that emergency you've got the footage, then absolutely we will get to it. But if you don't get a response for suspicious footage, don't stop. Like, we will get to it. We want that information. So please let us have that. Go, sir.
Sorry, there's a bunch of people, there's hundreds of people online, so I'm just going to come and so you can speak into the mic. Thanks.
Sorry, just to follow up on that, because I think it's probably affected a number of people who are here. We've called the non-emergency line when we see suspicious activity, and often the answer is, unless a crime has occurred, we can't open a report for that. So it sort of contradicts what I just understood. Maybe you could clarify?
So I've actually worked in communications, and we've had that response, and I've seen it. That's not the response that we expect from our communicators or our officers. And so we've come up with other ways rather than calling communications, and it's calling the divisions directly through, and we have that information. So through the non-emergency, if you call the division, and there may be people who have done that and are not satisfied, that's a me issue. That's as a superintendent, I have to take concern with that. But anyone who calls has the right, and we should be taking their information like we would if it was a 911 emergency. So I will apologize for anyone who's experienced less than the service they deserve, but that's not the way that we teach our officers and show our officers. So we want you to call the division is probably the best because you will get the area where we are, obviously, and get the response you deserve.
Anything on this line of questioning before I go to a new line of questioning? No? Okay.
Along the same line, I would like to understand the limits. I mean, we talk about cameras and fencing and lights and that sort of thing. But if someone is actually, if we're actually got someone in our personal space or on our property, what are the limits? I'm just going to say, can I hit them on the head with a baseball bat and not worry about going to jail?
Sorry, before there was actually also a question on the Slido that talked about self-defense rules. If I shoot someone in my own home, so along this line of questioning.
Everything has to be reasonable. It's as simple as that. It's simple, but it's complex. If you've got somebody breaking into your home, you have the ability to defend yourself, but chasing them outside the home, down the driveway onto the street and smacking them with a bat may be frowned on. But everything has to be reasonable. We don't make the rules. We have to play by them. If someone's breaking into your home and on your property, you have the ability to defend yourself, but it has to be reasonable, right? And
Sorry.
Why is it reasonable for us as homeowners to be responsible and be careful for these criminals? And no, this is wrong. I believe everybody would agree with me that, why do we have to be not,
So if the criminal have the rights, why don't we have the rights?
yeah. Why?
As I said, police do not make the rules. We enforce them. Again, but here's an opportunity again for you to make your voices heard at the political level. The MPP Cuzzetto talked about the opportunity to make calls, vote, make your voices heard. I'll give you the example. We all know that organized crime is behind the majority of our car thefts. Yet when we arrest someone with a stolen car, we charge them with theft over $5,000. Because that's what we have in our toolkit. That is it. And then it goes to court, and you've got a 17 or 18-year-old who's charged with a property crime. That's how it's presented in court by defense counsel and the Crown and the judges. It's property crime. The penalties and the consequences are very slim, very small. And the payoff when you're 15 or 16 or 17 years old and getting $5,000 or $6,000 for stealing a $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 car, again, I hear you, but we don't make the rules.
Okay, sorry, we will go ahead.
And this is more of a safety thing. Remember, we all have families, we all have homes. I grew up in Mississauga as well. I would protect my two kids to the best of my ability. But what I want you guys to understand is you have to remember, you're not dealing with sophisticated individuals. These are criminals who are carrying guns, other weapons, and you have no idea what they're capable of doing because, we don't. And we would never tell you to defend yourself because you're putting yourself at danger. And it's like the saying, are you going to bring a knife to a gun show? Like, I get you want to protect yourself, but we have to do it in other ways. Our job, we do as best we can to be there to protect you, but we understand we're not going to be everywhere all the time. So I can guarantee you that all of us are going to say, do not put yourself in a position where you're going to get harmed, or you'll be harmed, or your family will be harmed. We all remember what the Toronto officer had said, and it was in good space about leaving your keys at the front door. How do you protect yourself, and where that went, right? I am not standing up here saying that. I am not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is, do not put yourself in a position where you're going to get hurt. Plain and simple.
This related to this line of questioning? Okay.
if the lady attacks the bad guy with her baseball hat, right? I know. The responding police to that address will be our community police. You men and women will be coming to the scene. You would be charging the homeowner. You would be the one charging the homeowner if there was something unreasonable, right? So that's kind of what we don't want to be tangling with these people. But if it does happen, we want immediate support from our community police members to support what we're doing. If we do take a risk ourselves,
So I will say that, and I guess it's anecdotal, but if you can tell me a time, or anyone can tell me a time where they've had a neighbor or someone they know who's been charged in a similar incident, I will say we've had those incidents. Actually, Lorne Park was one of them, where it was a break and enter. The homeowner may have hit someone over the head with a golf club, and they weren't charged. I'll leave it at that.
I also just want to clarify something too. As the deputy mentioned, we play a role. We don't make the rules, we enforce the rules. And that enforcement piece, if there was an incident where a homeowner was maybe excessive force, which is something that we have to deal with as well when we arrest people, we cannot use excessive force. So you as a homeowner have to be under the same rules. You can't have excessive force. However, if you are charged by the police for alleged excessive force, you're going to go to court, and then the Crowns will determine if this is something that they would wish to prosecute. So there's that level as well. We enforce the rules, and it goes to court where the decision will be made there. So just understand, it's about excessive force, the same things that we have to deal with and face when it comes to apprehension of an offender.
Okay, I'm just going to switch gears a little bit because we've talked a lot about elected officials. I'm one of them. Levels of government, orders of government, and how we work together. Instead of blaming one another, how are we going to work together? Instead of pointing fingers at each other, how do we work together? How are we going to commit to doing so? Sort of our responsibility at each level. And I'm happy to answer some of this, and I know Rudy is here as well, and I'm sure he'll be happy to answer as well. I will also say that we did invite MP Charles Sousa. He is in Ottawa and was unable to make it back today. And I know Rudy came in from Queen's Park as well, so we appreciate you being here in person. Listen, we do have a number of collaborative efforts together across governments, and Peel Regional Police actually led the way with the Auto Theft Summit. We were basically the first ones in Canada to bring every order of government together to say, this is the problem that's happening right here, right now, in our community in Peel, and how are you going to address it? And since then, we've seen increases in investments in terms of some of the borders, in terms of some of the ports, and we've gotten scanners in our own intermodal hubs here in Peel region as well. So there've been other steps, and I'm not going to speak for the federal government. I know some of his staff are here as well. I don't know if they want to wave and say hi. If you want to talk to him later, Galen's at the back of the room. But there are concerns at every level in terms of what everyone can do. Can the province, invest more in prisons and jails and appoint more judges? Absolutely. Can the feds do more to improve border security and control immigration and cars leaving the country and recidivism? Absolutely. And can they change the criminal code? Absolutely. Can municipal government continue to resource Peel Police as much as they need in order to be able to keep our community safe and keep this community, which is still the safest community in Peel region and the safest large city in all of Canada, right? And I know that's not enough, but that's our job, and that's what we're going to keep doing there. So, Rudy, did you want to add to that?
I'll touch on some of the things that we've done as a provincial government. We put in an additional $300 million into our policing, $143 million for helicopters, 5 helicopters that will go through Peel, Peel, Halton, Toronto, and York. York already has it, correct? But there's 5 helicopters to fight crime as well, and a lot of funding to police as well to fight crime. As well, I know that Peel is looking to hire another 200 officers in the Peel 300 officers in the Peel region. So that will be something that the municipal government has to approve as well. I believe that we should hire even more as a provincial representative, and just for the whole of Mississauga and Peel. And that's what we've been doing as a provincial government. We've been investing in policing and in judges too. JPs, we're just appointing more JPs. But I have a lot of friends that are JPs, and they tell me, we know that 2 + 2 = 4, but the law says it's 3. So they have to follow what the law is as well. So that's why I'm telling you about bail reform. And that's an issue that we have to work on all together in this room and fight that, because we need to put these criminals away.
Thank you, Rudy. And just to expand on what I was saying earlier, because I want to give the superintendent an opportunity to go through the stats, because we have absolutely seen an increase in break-ins, in violent crime, and in car thefts. So, Josh, do you want to go through that now? I think because there's a couple of questions here around the specific numbers here in Lorne Park. And then I'll come back to the audience.
Okay, so with regards to break and enters, what I'll do is provide you with a little bit of, and we've got, so this is a heat map, really not a concern. You can get this on our website, kind of shows the area of Lorne Park. And then when you see the different colors, we talk about the heat map. As it gets darker, it becomes more concentrated. There are more incidents, more crime. Now remember, this is data. I am not talking about obviously what you guys are feeling and experiencing when there is an incident. Just to show you the Lorne Park, couple of hot spots kind of on the outskirts, but overall the stats are fairly low in Lorne Park. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the heat maps. Protect ourselves, the ability to park your car in your driveway if you have that. We are seeing community members installing bollards, and other means in their driveways. I mean, if it's a preventative technique, if it's something that takes away the opportunity, we would absolutely support anything that a resident can do to protect themselves from their vehicle being stolen. Just looking at, this is just a breakdown of where the vehicles are being stolen from. We talk about Lakeshore having the highest number, obviously when we talk about plazas and everything else, but you'll see it's pretty consistent right across the board with the streets here. And again, this is all stuff that you can have in your hands. We'll make sure that you have this information. So when we talk about days of the week, again, it's pretty consistent. You see Wednesday being there, and I'll explain some of the intelligence that we've gathered. What we are seeing when it comes to auto thefts are criminal groups that are coming from outside of Ontario. So we've seen a lot of Montreal criminals coming from Montreal, and kind of the cycle is they come in Sunday, Monday, they'll scope around. Tuesday, Wednesday is when they're stealing the cars. They're dumping them, they're going to cooling spots. And then, as crazy as it sounds, the weekend is where we kind of see a little bit of a dip because they're partying, spending their money, and going back to, and I kid you not, because we've got some intelligence, and then they go back and the cycle happens again. MPP Cuzzetto has talked about this for as long as I've been the superintendent at the division. Where are these cars going? They're going to the ports. We've engaged with our federal partners. What can we do to strengthen our ability to find these cars? So what can we do as community members to try to minimize the opportunity? We talk about air tags, GPS. We do know that these criminals are savvy and they're stopping, they're trying to find these tags and all this GPS, and they're pulling them out. And there are times where we can't recover the cars. This is a constant recurring theme when we talk about, well, my car's been stolen, I can see it, but the police aren't responding to it. We understand that does happen. We talk about priority policing and priority call response. What I will say is there are going to be times, and I'll be honest, that we're not able to get to it right away. what we have seen in the past are people are then, I'm going to go get the car myself. Well, now you're putting yourself in danger. And where we have officers who are dealing with higher priority calls, not negating your property and your priority, we have had to pull officers off of calls because now you're putting yourself in a place of danger. So I would say, and I will stick to my guns on this one, do not chase your car. Even if you think it's in a safe space, it's parked, call us. We will do our best to get to it as soon as we can, but please do not put yourself in a position of danger trying to find your car. Again, this is just going through the different type of car. And folks, this is data. This is not us saying what the most stolen cars. So you talk about 28 and 27, you've got Land Rovers and Toyotas. This is where you guys, through our political, like MPP and councillors, we should be putting more on the manufacturers. I'll leave it at that. Time of day. So again, we look at what the peak times are that cars are being stolen. It's all over because we do have vehicles stolen from parking lots. It kind of skews the data a little bit. A lot of vehicles are stolen in the evening, opportunity, and that's really this map over here. So residential break-ins. I'm just going to look over here. It's a little easier for me. I apologize. So between January 1, 2023 and November 24, 1,500, just about 1,600 residential break-ins reported in the city of Mississauga, 145 in the Lorne Park over that same period, so 9% of all incidents. From January, so for the calendar year of 2023, 58, and we have now seen the spike in 2024 where there's 87. So we absolutely understand the increase in the break and enters from 2024 to 2023, or opposite. So majority of how they're being done, smash doors, rear sliding doors. We talk about their ability to go in through the ravines, they want to be, they don't want to be seen, obviously. So where a few years ago we were experiencing a spike in door kicks, where people were brazen during the day, they'd knock, no answer, they don't hear a dog, kick the front door. Now they're looking at going through the back. Now that's kind of been the MO for a lot of these break-ins. Unlock garage doors. Obviously, these are things that we can do as community members, as residents, to minimize this opportunity, right? If we've had 16 incidents where doors are unlocked, it's simple, lock the door. It's really easy math there. 46% while homes are unoccupied. This is obviously where the most concerning piece to us is that we're seeing an increase where people are home. And this becomes, is it a home invasion or is it a break and enter? By definition, a home invasion is when there's violence used on the resident at the time. So if you're home, we know that a lot of these break and enters are people wanting to get keys, steal a vehicle for the most part, what we're seeing, and head out. When they're confronted and there's violence, it turns into a home invasion. And so that's where, the numbers of home invasions are low, but a break and enter, if you're home, is as much of a home invasion to us as just a regular property crime. It's just the definition of the criminal code. So we talk about the months. This just kind of breaks down the occurrences. November, we see September and November are the two highest, August 13. So we are seeing a spike in that. December, I don't have, well, obviously we're just kind of at the beginning. I don't have the number where we are right now. So we talk about a breakdown on the days. The weekend, because 44% are when homeowners aren't home, that's why you're going to see the spike in that. But the fact that they happen Monday through Sunday is the reality. And then a breakdown of the break and enters to date by way of street.
Josh, can you comment on Indian Road? And is there anything in particular there?
So from an opportunity, and I hate constantly using that word, but the opportunity is Indian Road, because it's a main street, it's easy to get in and easy to get out. Now, I'm not saying don't live on Indian Road by any means, but this does paint a good picture as to these criminals don't want to kind of go off to the beaten path where they want to go on a court or go on where they could get stuck, could get caught. So the path of least resistance is a main road they're in, they're out, and then they're on Mississauga Road in the highway or southbound and on the highway. So that's why you see a bit of a spike on Indian Road. Entry methods, again, we talk about what I went through the different types. The 44% are the smashed, 21% are forced entries, and then you get through. This is stuff that you can have. You don't see key cuts or cut windows, the prying, because it takes time. It's as quick as they can to enter the residence and get out. And then these are calls for service per month within Craftsman condos, which we know that this is another conversation piece with mischiefs and everything else. And then stats that we could go through, but I won't bother going through those right now.
Okay, so we'll leave the contact information up here. I'm going to start in the back because a lot of people in the back haven't had an opportunity, but I'll start with these folks.
Hi, this question's been upvoted a few times on the Q&A, but question is, what should I do if someone is actively breaking into my home?
So dial 911 and put yourself in a place of protection. So what you'll normally get is once you're on the phone with 911, our call takers will direct you to lock yourself in your room, put yourself in a place where you can hide, stay on the line as our officers are responding. So some folks, and I've worked in communication for a year, so some folks will want to try to film it, try to get evidence, try to put themselves again in a place. What our communicators and what we say is, if you think someone's breaking in, you call 911 and put yourself in a place of safety within your residence and stay there till we get there.
Okay, I have a question over here. Is there any area in the house to avoid?
In what respect?
When,
So I mean,
I guess when you're hiding? Are the criminals going to the master bedroom?
So they're going to the master bedroom when there's nobody. So when you have the unoccupied homes, obviously it's free will. But what we're seeing is when people are home and it's the intention is to get a vehicle, they're going for the places like a kitchen, the front hall. They're looking for the keys at easy, and then they're leaving. If they're spending time in the house, are they going to the master bedroom? I could never predict where someone's going to go, so I don't want to even try to answer that. But I will say, the deeper they get into the house, it's more time and more opportunity for them to get caught. So does it happen? Absolutely. But it's hard for me to say where. And remember, they
Sorry,
don't know
I
the
just
house.
can't. There's a lot of people online, so I will come to you. And I'll repeat your question. Or should you indicate to them that that you're home?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So, I say a dog barking obviously is a deterrent. The communicator will say whether you yell, so yes, noise is not a bad thing, because if they think no one's home, they will run out. They don't want to confront, because when we talk about that criminal code and the difference between a break and enter and a home invasion changes significantly.
So Josh, just continuing on that line, if someone is in the home when you call 911, does that increase the call priority?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. It will become so when we talk about call priorities, a break and enter, we call it a 1047 break and enter, break and enter in progress. When we get that call, it's because somebody's home. That's a priority one because of public safety. We're dispatched immediately.
Okay, I have another question over here.
I just wanted to know, the break-ins that are happening, is it primarily that they're looking for car keys or something else?
So what we are seeing from what the data shows is primarily our car keys. That's been the trend over 2024, but we do see safes, jewelry, money. A lot of times when we see those thefts, they're targeted. It's, whether you are, and again, this is not a victim blame, whether, on social media, let's say you've had a party and you've got your house. Believe it or not, these criminals are savvy. They will look for that stuff. They'll look to see videos within and say, okay, wow, I just saw this. And so it's a targeted break and enter. But what the trend is that we're seeing break and enters for car keys, and then they're out.
Okay, I have another question over here.
So, what's the most effective way to liaise with the police? For instance, so our house was broken into. We have video footage in a Facebook chat, Ladies of Lorne Park or something. There's footage of the exact same group about 2.5 weeks prior to our house being broken into. So, my concern is, I guess one officer might have been assigned to that one, another officer might have been assigned to ours. How do we know that? Because I would think that'd be helpful. That it's like, wow, they have footage. It's the same people because obviously they're hitting the area. So what's the best way to make sure all that gets connected and can help you guys as much as possible?
That's a great question. So every division we have units within our investigative bureau. So we have a break and enter unit, an auto theft unit, and their job, in addition to investigating, is ensuring that all information coming in is connected so we can piece together, because we know this is organized crime. That's the reality of what it is. So we use that information. When you talk about the best way to get a hold of us within the division, I'll share my information. You'll have my number, my email address. Obviously sending that stuff to me, I will be fanning it off to our people, but I want everyone in this room on the call to feel confident leaving here. Obviously on a number of things, but the ability to call us and have us respond to the non-emergency stuff, but the important stuff, the intelligence, the camera footage and whatever else. So we'll have our information through our CLO, through the division, myself, that you'll be able to share that information so we have it.
I'm going to take one question here and one more up front, and then I'm going to go back to the Slido.
So I want to go back to a comment you made, I think, to opening question, but I personally don't have any confidence that this is going to be fixed at a political level. I think, that's part of the reason we're in this mess. And I have great respect for the hard work that you're doing and the lack of funding that you guys have to put up with. My question is I think it was the very beginning question of the evening. What can we do? This is not going to get fixed. I'm not going to feel any safer tonight in my home. I live on a ravine. I'm waiting for it to get broken into. That's the way I live my life now, is when is my home going to be broken into, which is extremely sad. What can we do to protect ourselves in the short term? Because this is a long-term fix that we're hearing tonight. You guys are really, really, really up against it, and I think most of us respect that. But someone mentioned about a private solution, a group of neighbors on streets, a group of neighbors in a 2-block area hiring a solution to make us feel safe and try to somehow reduce the risk of being broken into. What can we do to make ourselves feel safer right now? Because most of us are concerned tonight that something's going to happen to us tonight.
And great question. And I thank you for the sentiment as well. So it's the target hardening, essentially. And so, I don't want to be a broken record when we talk about what you can do so for instance, my house, the lights are always on in the backyard. Is it, saving electricity? I don't care. My lights are always on. I have cameras in the back. I'm not on the ravine side, but we have our windows are always closed, our blinds are always closed, so that way we don't allow the opportunity for someone to look in to see what's in the house. We talk about those steps. Remember what I said earlier about private security. That's our job, to protect the public. Are we saying don't do it? I'm not going to say that. You need to take the steps that you feel are necessary to protect yourself, but know that we are also working to do the same, and we want to be the ones that you depend on when it comes to it. But we already talked about that information, where we are with resourcing. So those are the steps that you can take to reduce opportunity, and that's really, that's the information or the advice that I would give you.
Just to add on to that, working together as a community, not just in this room, but on your street, the neighborhood watch program works really, really well. And the ability to communicate with each other, the WhatsApp groups that we see, we've seen situations where those WhatsApp groups because of their existence and because of neighborhoods taking a proactive stance, sort of, alerting each other to people that are on the street that are not part of the neighborhood, communicating with one another. Those harden your communities against becoming victimized. And we've seen situations where people have decided they're going to go to another neighborhood that's not as connected and doesn't communicate as well. So those are some things you can do. It's not the total solution, and I really thank you for talking about supporting the police, but we've got to take some ownership here too. For the better part of a decade, we didn't do a very good job of resourcing ourselves, and that's why we're in this catch-up phase. So we've got to take some ownership of that and do a much better job of predicting the future. Because you stand still in this profession, you're actually losing ground.
I just want to bring it back to the 911 call. I had my house broken into back in June to steal the car that was outside. My concern was I called 911 and the operator kept me on the phone for a good 5 minutes asking me questions when I was concerned about the safety of my kids. I'm not thinking at that time, I'm not thinking if they're still in the house, if my husband is under attack, if, what do they look like, how many of them there are. All I want to know is that you guys are on the way and that you've already located my address. So I think my concern is when we call 911, are you responding right away? As in, have you determined where we are, like the house from the cell phone and whatnot? And why do I have to answer the questions that could be answered when an officer comes on the scene?
So thank you for that. Yes, absolutely. When you call 911, whether it's from a home, your cell phone, it's called any-alley. That's a technical term. Your address always comes up. So there are times where there's a drop and we have to ask clarifying information. But what the communicator is doing is gathering the information to prioritize your call. And when we talk about if you are not inside, you've returned home from work, your house has been broken into, you know that your family is with you or you've been out on the weekend, you're not in the place of danger, which is inside. So as we're gathering that information, they need to make a determination on the priority. Is it a priority one response that you're inside, you're in danger? If you're not in danger, they're going to ask you some questions. We may not be able to get to that specific incident because you're not in a place of danger. If I'm the communicator, they should be saying, stay in your car, don't go near the house, stay back, and we will get there as soon as we can. So those are those important questions. They're not stalling. A lot of times, like when you call 911 and there's an emergency, we're already on the route, on the way. So they're just gathering information for the responding officer to be prepared when we get there of what we're getting into. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry for that. And also those questions that they're asking you, maybe questions of the responding officer asking the communicator to clarify things. And it also makes us figure out what kind of response we're going to have. Because it's not just an officer that's going to be responding to the house. We could have a tactical unit if there's weapons involved. We can have a canine unit if there's going to be a reason to track. And these resources are all around the region. We're drawing them in. So they keep you on that phone for that information so we have the proper response.
A couple of questions here I want to get back to online. People are looking for details around the community incident response team, the CERT teams that we were talking about. We've been told that they've been dispatched. A number of us have not seen increased police presence. I guess without disclosing things that would be helpful to criminals, how much more police presence are we talking about in terms of officers, resources? How frequent are the patrols? If that's not something that we should answer, then let's not. But they want some more details about CERT and how it's deployed and how long is it being deployed for?
Absolutely. So our CERT teams are 12 officers per team. I don't want to bore you with the details on that, but when we talk about deploying, you're right. I don't want to give a schedule. That makes no sense. And I don't want to tell you what we're dressed in or whatever. So the majority of their proactive patrols in uniform, because we know that presence minimizes opportunity, but there are times where you won't see them in a fully marked car. They'll be in an unmarked car. They're going to be sporadic. We talk about how big Lorne Park is. You may not be outside walking when a cruiser is there or standing by your window to see them, but I am telling you, they are out there. we've got about, like I said, 12 officers who are specifically doing a Lorne Park project, and I'll leave it at that. So will you see them all the time? No, you won't. Are they in the ravines? Are they looking for certain things that we know from intelligence is what we're looking? Absolutely. So can I promise you that you'll always see them in front of your place? You won't, because whether they're mobile or whatever else, you may miss them, but they are present and they are active patrolling.
So a little tricky question here around who is committing these crimes. Some demographic questions. Are you targeting certain people who, there's a direct question here around, are South Asians targeted? Are we talking about refugees, immigrants? So I don't know if you have demographic data or what would be useful in this context.
If I'm going to focus on those who are being targeted, I think obviously we talk about the simplest terms, what's the most bang for their buck, right?
Sorry, I think the question was more around the criminals.
The criminals,
Who's-
yes.
Yeah, gangs, like who are you talking about? Or both? Okay, let's do both.
Yeah. So when we talk about why the numbers are so high in Lorne Park, when we talk about break and enters, it's the opportunity is that there is expensive cars, potentially jewelry. They're looking for the bang for the buck, and that's why they're targeting these areas. So this is why we have upped our patrols, not because of the recent. We have been doing it. We are now just changing and increasing certain things I don't want to get into over online, just I don't want to give away some of our secrets. But when we talk about who's committing the crime, honestly, there is no barrier. There is no specific demographic. They're criminals, plain and simple, regardless of what the background is. And so, I would never, and I know the boss would be the same, we would never stand up here and say that it's a specific demographic that's committing a crime, because that is completely inappropriate and discriminatory and everything else. So all to say is they're criminals that are doing it. Do we track? We talk about organized crime, and I'll let the boss talk about organized crime. That's what we're seeing. The trends when we talk about B&Es and auto thefts, organized crime.
There's a couple of different types of organized crime. There's the organized crime that we think of as traditional organized crime. We've got a hierarchy, and then we've got what we call organized disorganized crime, which is young people that are being utilized by criminal groups because they know that the consequences for young people tend to be very low, and the young people are easily utilized and led into the criminogenics, and we'll see. Well, the gangs that are coming, the gangs that are coming out of Montreal are usually very young, that are coming here to steal cars and take them back. But they're utilizing these young people as pawns, because the consequences for them are very low, and the young people are easily misled, and $4,000 or $5,000 to 16, 17, 18-year-old is a lot of money. But the high level is organized crime. Make no doubt about that. They're shipping cars and containers to Africa, Europe, Central Asia, etc. This is not being done by some 17-year-old from Montreal.
Okay, I'm going to go back to questions. I got one here. I will go to you in the green after that.
I'm going to ask, is it repeat offenders? Are they repeat offenders? And do they have pictures of them that you could show to us in order to be aware who they are?
So
sorry, the question was repeat offenders. Are a lot of them repeat offenders? Do we have photos of who these people are? And is that public?
So I'm laughing because the boss is a huge proponent of media releases. So when we arrest and charge individuals, his push on us is to put the pictures out and to educate, to show what you're looking for. We don't do that all the time. And when we talk about repeat offenders, I don't have the stat to say exactly what the number is of those repeat offenders who we're finding, but you've heard us talk about bail reform, the amount of money we're spending on investigating those who have been released or on current conditions. It's high. So you can imagine when we look at that data, are a number of them repeat offenders? Absolutely.
It's a great opportunity here to tell the crowd, and it's in your inbox, Josh. Send them an email tonight. We have initiated a collaboration with other organizations, OPP, York, Toronto, Halton, and we're all up on a bail compliance checklist now. So it's actually a tool that officers can utilize, that we are sharing data, sharing pictures of people that are on bail in our communities, that we can check on their compliance, we can be more proactive. I'm handing it over to kick it off and Peel to start with the CERT units, because they have that proactive piece that they can go out there and check on these people that are on compliance checks, or we'll call them compliance checks, to make sure they're abiding by their bail, and hopefully that will prevent further victimization in our community. So I'm proud to say that's going to be out full to all officers, but we have to pilot it with other organizations, and we're going to start off with the CERT units, and then all officers are going to have access to it. So that's actually just happening today.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I bought a house in Lorne Park in 2017. I was quite shocked with the property taxes, paying them on time, no questions asked. And I understand you guys are doing your best to protect yourself, and I respect that. I appreciate that. And I understand how swamped you are. My cars, my jet ski got stolen. Police didn't have time to investigate that stuff. Now, how about if we put this into this perspective? We have a state of emergency happening in our area, maybe all over Mississauga, and let's deal with this here and now. How about if City of Mississauga introduce some sort of a property tax credit, which then we can use to pay for those private security companies, not for the rest of our lives, but at least temporary until your numbers go down in your charts, to say, okay, guys, here's some money back. You can hire your security company. We'll give you some credit. And now we see the numbers are down. Maybe it's because of the private security. Maybe it's because the police is doing better work. And let's remove that stuff. But because I, like a gentleman behind me, I have two small kids in my house, I have no doubt they'll come to my house at one day. I need to have some sort of a ability to protect my family financially. And again, I understand the protests, I understand the demonstrations and stuff, but this is irrelevant to the property taxes that I'm paying here in Lorne Park. And I really would like to get some sort, and the reason they're coming here is because they know there's something to take. My point is there any chance at all to consider this during your next meeting at the council?
I'll let the superintendent reiterate. I think the issues around private security. The police budget is one from when I got first elected 2 years ago. We passed an increase of 70 additional officers. That was the request that year. And last year we had 135. This is on top of civilian support as well, and obviously investments into 911. The point is that we have a system publicly funded for everyone through the police, and I think we do need to support the police and use the police. I'm very conscious of your tax increases. I ran to freeze your property taxes, and I voted against the budget in the city. But I'm going to support the police budget at the region because I think it's really important that the police have the tools that they need in order to keep our community safe. And the proposal right now is going to be 300 additional officers. So we are growing as much as we are able to do, and in terms of the capacity that the force can even take, right? We can't even hire any more because it would take longer to onboard them. But this is an ongoing, I'm just sort of quoting the deputy here, correction of years of what I would say is underfunding that now we're catching up to, right? And so this is a continuing conversation. I'm sorry I can't entertain that specific one about private security because I don't think we can support that. I think we need to be supporting police wholly, and that's the appropriate way that we need to continue policing in the community.
And again, just to double down on the private security, we're not standing up here saying don't get private security. What we're saying is, obviously, as a police agency and organization, and it's not just us, it's across the GTA, Ontario, Canada, we want to be number one responsible for your public safety and for your safety. But we understand that, alarm companies have alarm response. That's outside of policing. There are other measures that people can take to further protect their homes and their property. We are not saying no, don't do it. What we're saying is we want to be responsible for public safety, but we also understand what you're feeling and the options out there to increase safety.
Okay, so we've been going
sorry.
almost an hour and a half now. I want to make sure that we get to some questions that we have left in the room. I've got you, sir. Have you asked a question already? Do you mind if I go to someone who hasn't? I'm going to start with you. I'm going to start with you because you're in front of me, and then I'm going to go over there. And then everybody put your hand up right now. I'm going to try to land on these last 5, 6 questions, okay? And then you guys are sticking around too to answer any additional questions after the meeting. I just want to be respectful of everyone else this time. Go ahead, ma'am.
So thank you. I appreciate everyone being here and the efforts that you guys are talking about that have been done. Having said that, if like we are a frustrated community for so many reasons. There are 250 plus people in this building, 250 online. Like we are clearly frustrated. We have the WhatsApp groups. We are looking into lights and cameras. With these extra security or these extra CERT cars and officers that are in the area, if these numbers don't go down, what is going to happen? I know we're not getting a tax rebate. I know we're not getting, bail reform tomorrow. What can we realistically expect from the people who we've elected and hired in this room for things to change? And if they don't, what is the next step?
So I think when we talk about, what can you expect? So we're increasing our presence. For us to stand up here and say that we're going to eliminate crime that's unrealistic. We obviously know that's going to happen. And so when we talk about what we can do together, what your steps you're taking to try to minimize opportunity are increased, do we expect that the numbers will go down with that increased presence? I really do. I truly do believe that. So when we're talking about our budget, asking for the additional officers, right sizing the numbers to give us more frontline officers for that patrol, I truly believe, we all believe, that those numbers will go down. Are you going to see it by the end of the month? I can't stand here and tell you that. But what I can see or tell you is with the increased presence, with the steps that you folks do as a resident, you will see a decrease.
Okay.
Yeah, complex problems don't have easy solutions. I can sit up here and tell you that, we'll do X and that will eliminate break-in enters and car thefts, and I'd be lying to you. We've all got pieces of the puzzle. Elected officials, policing, the community groups. But the idea that we're gonna solve crime across the country overnight, that's not gonna happen. We're all gonna, if we do the right things, we'll have an impact. Part of that is better resourcing. Part of that is better structure and organization of policing in your community, making sure we have the right number of officers in the right places at the right time. But it's a work in progress. But anybody that tells you that they have a solution, if they do, well, I've been across this continent and everyone is facing the same challenges.
This side of the room is much cooler. I should have stood here earlier. Go ahead.
First, I just want to thank you for all your efforts. And I think most of us understand that you're not responsible to solve all of our problems. But I just want to go back on the proposed increase to the Peel Police Services budget. And hopefully one of you in the room can kind of give us a little bit of guidance on that. We're talking about potentially additional 300 officers, right? This is what I heard, but that's for Peel. And as it relates to our community, not that I don't care about the rest of Peel region, but we're here for our community right now. What does that mean in the Lorne Park community? Exactly how many more officers or what additional services are we going to be getting out of that proposed increase? Because I'm assuming the proposed increase is going to be funded by an increase in property tax, and our homes are fairly expensive in the area. So we'll be contributing to this increase in a significant manner. So, and I don't know if you know the answers, but I'd like to see someone maybe give us a little bit more of a concrete answer in terms of how that's going to impact our community.
So I will say, and I'll turn it over to the deputy to talk about the budget, but just when you talk about property tax increase, remember, this is across the region. And so we won't get into Brampton, Mississauga, because we're obviously, that's a big conversation, but all residents within Mississauga are going to have their taxes increased. So, but when we talk about 300 officers, 11 division alone, the population boom in our division is ginormous. Square One, that whole area, everything is going up. So when we talk about data drives resources, we will see an increase. If it's 300 officers, we will see a larger piece within the division because population, everything else. So it's not going to be a share split. We will see, because of the area, and I'll get back to the deputy in a second, but we will see a different number of officers coming down this way that we can deploy in the certain areas. But we're policing the whole division. I completely understand how the community hears, but the same feelings you have are the same feelings other communities have that have been victimized and with B&Es and auto thefts. So we use data to help drive where we put our resources to ensure that that area that's experiencing a certain level of criminal activity is getting the attention required.
The 300 officers that we're going to hire, 55% of those will be coming to Mississauga. Contingent on a number of other issues, because the 300 is 300 additional complement. We're going to lose some officers to retirement and resignations, so it's probably going to be significantly more than 300 in total that we hire. But 55% of those will be coming to Mississauga, and officers that are assigned to 11 Division or 12 Division will be here and available to respond to different issues at the right time. And as Josh said, our response is driven by data, which is one of those things we've got to do a better job of working on. But we're going to ensure that at least 55% of those officers are coming to Mississauga.
And the reason we were able to do the CERT teams was because of the additional 200 plus that we've done in the last 2 years. So here you go.
My question is sort of following along the same lines, but if you're adding 12 of these CERT officers, is that a temporary measure? And prior to that, my understanding was there were 4 constables and a sergeant assigned to Lorne Park. I think that was not enough. Clearly, that was an issue. So these 12 are a permanent change, and is it for our area specifically?
So that let me just clarify. It's 48 in total for the division. It's just one team. So what we're talking about is each team is assigned an area within 11 Division. So you've got a team that would be assigned the Lakeshore. Let's call it that. And within the Lakeshore, I will or they will say, okay, here's a problem area. Here's an area that we've identified that we need to put resources or time into, and they do that. So it's actually 48 officers. It's not just that team. We've got the whole CERT unit within the division to use at our disposal when we identify areas that require, proactive patrols, high crime, other projects that are necessary. So, and it's permanent, absolutely permanent. This was from last year's budget. And if you ask me, and I'll say it in front of my 2 bosses, if I could double that unit, we absolutely would. So, but they're here to stay, and we've seen a significant impact with our CERT teams.
The question was, they are assigned to this area specifically.
Yeah, so one of the teams is assigned not to Lorne Park specifically, to the Lakeshore. Yeah. So you're talking about anything south. That's actually more like Stave Bank to Winston Churchill, Lakeshore down. But data drives. There are pockets where we don't see issues, so there's no need for CERT to be there. So the data is going to drive where our CERT team are going to do projects and everything else. And so right now, the reason why you're seeing an increase is data is driving the fact that there's been a significant increase in break and enters, and now they're deployed in the area to try to combat that.
Okay, we're going to do the last 3 here. So go ahead, sir.
Sure. Thank you so much. Just want to maybe one conversation that we haven't had so far is that we all love Amazon Prime and all these deliveries that happen in our neighborhood. I'm on Tecumseh Park Drive, and we see a lot of vehicles that are budget vehicles. They're just white vans that are coming for delivery. I think one of the incidents that happened is that they pretended to be someone else, and then they break in, right? Either they're from Enbridge, or they're saying that they knock on the door to open the door. So maybe talk a little bit about what can we do as residents to take pictures of some of these. On Tecumseh Park Drive, we all notice it quite a bit. There's a lot of suspicious vehicles that are not from our street, that they just come around. There was a time people would come and look at just houses for some reason, but now there's a lot of these vehicles, right? So when we take pictures of these vehicles or send you the license plates, are they really actioned upon so that could be preventative, number one? And number two, what should we be doing with all of these vehicles that are coming in when they knock on the door for signatures and others? Because this is happening, during daylight these days. What can we be doing about that? Thank you.
So obviously, it's heightened right now with everything going on. But to your point, with the amount of delivery vehicles, everything else, it's not realistic to assume that every vehicle is suspicious, right? And so to take a plate because you see a budget van going through and calling us, I'm going to be honest, that you're going to inundate us with information that may not be relevant. If you see a vehicle that's sitting on the street for an extended period of time, somebody sitting there doesn't look, that's an incident. If you want to take the time, and I'm not minimizing the concern, but if you were gathering information and send it over to us, the question will be, okay, well, why is it suspicious? Like, you have to provide us with a little bit of background as to why you believe it's suspicious. Because to your point, if we investigated every vehicle or tried to link it, it would actually be negative, right? You're now taking away from true suspicious incidents, and we're adding a whole list of license plates individuals that may extend an investigation. So I can't sit here and tell you how to feel on but I am going to say simply just the amount of vehicles on the street it's the circumstances that make it suspicious.
So outside of police calling 911 or contributing to the line, you can also call bylaw enforcement if someone is parking on your street for greater than 5 hours. Most of our streets in the community have 5-hour parking limits. Some of them are 15, but they should be signed. If you call 311 for a car that's been parked for more than five hours, it'll be ticketed and then it'll be put into the system. And if sometimes they ticket a car that is on a stolen list and then it gets recovered. Deputy, did you want to?
I just wanted to add that every division also has a crime analyst whose purpose is collating and analyzing data. So the information that you provide is utilized, and we don't want to overburden the system with data that's not important. But if you feel that there is information that you think is worth putting forward to the police, understand we'll utilize it.
Okay.
If you do feel you have information that's relative, please share it. Don't hesitate to share it. You'll find on our business cards, our emails. Email us the picture and we'll direct it in the right place. Like, never hesitate. The information, the more we know, the better off we are.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you're adding 300 officers, and I think that's a good response. But it seems to be still on the same treadmill. I mean, you're going to help capture, apprehend these guys, but from what I'm seeing and hearing is 40 to 50% of them are repeat offenders. This question is not for the Peel Police, but this question is for Rudy. All the data that's been presented today, frankly, has helped the police develop the justification for the increase in budget. My question is, what kind of statistics can we get from the provincial government in terms of the number of convictions, the number of people who have been put away versus on bail? Because I think that's the other half of the question here. Is if we could cut down on somehow help get the same attention to keeping these people locked up, then maybe the police officers could do other things and not spend so much time and money on trying to capture these criminals.
Well, I agree with you totally. And I agree that the police are doing their job. But as the laws are set in Canada, when they go to court, the judges and the JPs have to follow the rules. And those rules say to let them out on bail.
Sorry, I think I'm just going to come back with the microphone just so that everyone can hear you. Can you pass this to him, please?
Yes, what I'm seeing is the police side of the data, the number of break-ins, the number of auto thefts, the number of apprehensions. But what I'm not seeing is the data on the court side. When they do go to court, what happens then?
Well, I can get you that information from the Attorney General of Ontario.
Great, because the way I read it in trying to pursue the information, I have to contact the court for that information case by case. And I think as somebody's concerned about the residents and the community, that's like I'm not an expert in the court system, and I think we need that side of the equation as well.
I totally agree. And we're the first government that's put in a minister for car theft and bail reform in the province of Ontario as well to help us with this.
Trying not to increase any political temperature here, I do want to give MP Sousa's office an opportunity to also answer your question around federal actions.
Sure. Yeah. And thanks, Alvin. So my name's Galen. I manage MP Charles Sousa's office. He was hoping to be here tonight. The House wound up sitting a little bit later than expected, so he had to cancel the flight that he had to come home. I wanted to make sure I was here. So if anybody has any questions about what we're doing federally, I'm certainly here to answer them. I'll stay here until anybody that has a question for me gets an answer they feel is satisfying, or they take my contact information so we can get it. From our perspective, you know, if Charles were here, I think he would say that this isn't about finger pointing to different levels of government. I think that this is an issue that we all have to come together and work on. We all know people that have experienced auto theft, home invasion, violent crime, and I don't think it's productive to go, these guys are doing everything wrong and we have all the solutions. I think that whether it's the province, the region, the feds, the police force, I think it's more productive when we come together and work on these solutions. We have implemented tougher bail restrictions, bail reform at a federal level last year. We've also invested something like $815 collective million on organized and violent crime. But for me, I'm not saying that because I want you to go, oh yeah, well, their job is done now. They've done a fantastic job. I'm trying to illustrate that we do take the issue seriously. We have made some changes so far. There are more changes to make. I'm happy to listen to anybody's input on what that ought to be and take that back to Charles. And I know that our constituency office door is always open to you guys. We have an email inbox. We have a phone number. I'm happy to share all those details or to answer any questions that I can tonight as well. Thanks, Alvin.
Thank you. And just, I know you'll have questions for Galen, but he is not an elected official. I did want to give him an opportunity to say something, but I'll go over here for more questions.
First one, I'm going to make a statement. The police force is doing the best job they can with the tools they've got. But one tool they really haven't said much about, and that's everybody that's sitting here right now. My wife and I have put letters forward to Charles Sousa's office, and they died on the floor. So there's over 200 people here right now. Your job, our one voice didn't make a difference, but 200 voices can. First, you go after Rudy because he's got the bigger club that can now go after the federal. We need the bail system to be changed and the parole system to be changed. So when you go home tonight and tomorrow, you start writing those letters. One to Charles Sousa's office and one to Rudy's. Now, Rudy's office, I know, is doing everything they can. But I know for a fact, my wife and I are well known here. We're well known in Marinette. We retired from that. We don't carry the baton anymore. We're getting too old for it. It's your turn to pick up that baton and do something with it. So when you walk away tonight, any robberies, especially when a person's been on bail and then you get out again, and I'll make one example to the officer's going to answer this. If I go out today with my next door neighbor and I go to a variety store and he runs out of the car and goes in there with a gun and robs that variety store and comes back to the car and he's yelling at me, we got to drive, we got to drive. Do I get charged for that? Being an assistant to it? Absolutely. But, so the officers will answer yes, right? So why is it a judge lets a person on bail? Now, the first time I can understand that. But the second time that person was on bail, and even a third time, and the guy had an ankle bracelet. So therefore, our
political systems should get together. That judge should be charged with driving the car, except he's driving a bus. He's not driving a car. Thank you.
Sorry, Lawrence. I know there's going to be some other questions here, but they've been waiting quite a bit.
What I would like to know is the homes that have been invaded, are they the newer homes or are they not particular? And the same with these the theft of the cars. Are they 20 over like my husband has a 2015 Range Rover. Should he be as concerned as the person that has a 2023 Range Rover?
That's a very fair question. So I will say we don't have data on the age of homes that are being broken into. I don't think that there's a number on that. But what we do see is where's the value in the vehicle, and it's the newer vehicles that are being stolen. So I'm not saying that the 2015 is not attractive, but
Okay, sir, go ahead.
Thank you. A couple of quick questions. As a sort of victim of a jewelry theft through the back door patio, the officer recommended we replace the patio door to put security film on there. So maybe you can comment on that as one point. Second thing is you talked about, I don't know, 49% success on car theft recovery. Is there a stat on jewelry theft recovery, or is there any hope for my wife to get her jewelry back?
So I will say that obviously jewelry, unfortunately, is a much more difficult task to. So folks, at time you're not going to identify the jewelry unless you have photos. When they're stolen, they're smaller. They're much easier to get out of the country, to get into. You know, we have a huge, I don't say project, but partnership/project with secondhand stores where they sell used jewelry, whatever else, and there's the restrictions on how they get this jewelry to resell is a lot more strict. We have ways and means to be able to do that, but the likelihood of jewelry being recovered is much more difficult than a vehicle. That's just the simple fact. A lot of the times the vehicles are recovered because of the steps people are taking with the air tags, GPS, and all that. Jewelry is much more difficult.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yes, absolutely. We all would recommend. Those are those steps we talked about. Security film. I'm not going to say prevents the ability to be smashed, but absolutely makes it more difficult. Everyone I speak to, if you have the ability to put on security film on your patio doors, or even windows that can provide access to the basement, like lookout windows, absolutely do that. In addition to bars. You know, simple tricks of putting a bar on your sliding door to prevent the ability to, once it's broken, unlocked, they can't open it.
Okay. It is 9 o'clock. Hubert, Mark, Josh, I want to thank you so much. Please, everybody, thank our Peel police officers and all their team members who are here today. Did you want to wrap something up? Closing message, Deputy Chief?
Absolutely. Thank you, Alvin. Again, listen, folks, you know, I know some of our answers weren't that satisfying, and we're not pointing fingers here as the police. We own a piece of this, and there are things that we should have done that we didn't do that we're trying to catch up on, and you know, we own our own mistakes, but we all have a piece of this, and we want to work with the community. We want to work with our local politicians. We want to work with our provincial and federal politicians, because together we can make a real difference here. But you know, we've got to be focused on the same goal. And I think we are, and meetings like this are critically important because you have a voice and you have a platform, use it. And we're here to support you. There's no time, no issue that we won't be front and center as your police service, because we are your police service.
Thank you, Mark.
I just want to, and if you don't mind, I just want to follow up on a comment that was made earlier on, because I want to make sure that there's no confusion with what was said. Earlier, we were talking about some of the reasons, geopolitical issues that are going on within our region, the GTA, and across Canada, the increase of demonstrations, the increase of protests. What we're saying is there are response responses that or incidents or things that we're responding to that were not around 5-10 years ago. We live in a society where this is allowed, and we should have the ability to voice our opinions, to demonstrate peacefully. But what happens is when we have large numbers, we have to respond for public safety. So it's not just protest demonstrations. I was just painting a picture of some of the new things that are coming up. Social media may have painted something that was said or misrepresented what was said in this room. We are not responding only to that. We're just providing you that an increase in other policing issues drains our resources. Thank you. And so if I'm going to ask you respectfully, because that was not said, to take that post down, because that was not there, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
I have not been on Twitter during this meeting, so I've been missing most of that. But I do really want to thank Peel Regional Police Deputy Chief and your whole team for coming out tonight. Safe City, Mississauga, if you are interested in working on Neighborhood Watch, Gerald is here to talk to. Rowena is here. She's our Community Liaison Officer. That's her email. I email her all the time. When you email me, we go to her and Josh and talk about the team here. My commitment to you is to support the police in every opportunity that I can to ensure community safety as much as I can, working with our partners, Rudy and Charles, and making sure we continue to have the best community here in Mississauga. I thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.